It's advisable to watch what you eat when pregnant to avoid and manage both weight gain and being underweight. Watching your weight while pregnant should not necessarily imply the limitation of food intake, but rather the intelligent and conscious selection of food that makes up your daily nourishment. Happy Thursday, ladies and gents. I hope you have your cup of tea next to you because today's topic is one that might be a little controversial, maybe not actually, who knows, but we're talking about pregnancy and diet and exercise and nutrition. And let me tell you something, there's so many myths out there, there's ups and downs on what you should or shouldn't be doing, and today we get to break some of those myths. And we have Dr. Claire Kinuthia in studio. She is a consultant obstetrician and gynecologist, and we have Tatiana Karanja, who is a photographer, a mother to a beautiful baby girl, and she's also currently pregnant. But before we get into the story, I'd love for you guys to join us on social media. That's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, where you can chime in and let us know your thoughts. Or if you have any questions too, hit us up on social media. But ladies, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you guys doing and feeling today?
Doing very well.
Very well, yeah, a bit nervous.
Tats, how are you feeling?
Good. Very good today, yeah.
Pumped to get into the conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
Talk about food, which is actually one of your favorite topics.
Pastimes?
And pastimes too. Tats is a big foodie. For starters, maybe we could start by even talking about, and maybe Dr. Claire, you could take us through this. How important is diet in your pregnancy journey?
So diet is extremely important, right from preconception all the way through the pregnancy and even after you've delivered and during the time that you're breastfeeding your baby.
Yeah.
This is a key time that you should be focusing on eating as healthy as you possibly can.
Okay.
And it's something that people don't pay much attention to or don't even think about too much. And we have that thing where we want to give in to all the cravings and everything that you just want, the junk food and the chips and the anything that comes to mind and the KFC. And we try and avoid that as much as possible because you are growing an actual human being.
Yeah.
And it's important what you're putting into your body because those are the building blocks you're giving to your baby.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, Tats, do you have any specific cravings or?
It's funny, I think for both babies, at the beginning I craved like sour fruits, like what are they, gooseberries? Are they called gooseberries? And like strawberries that are not really ripe.
Yeah.
And sour mangoes.
Yeah.
And then donuts. Specifically just glazed donuts. Like the first pregnancy I could just not find something that was really good, and then now I know at Zucchini they have some really good donuts.
And you chime in. Speaking of cravings, have you guys heard of, I'm sure you have, but of people who crave things like rocks, or what is that about? And
So
what does that mean?
We call it pica.
Pica.
It has a medical term, and it's where you're having some deficiencies in the system, and so to compensate, your body starts to crave things that it thinks it'll get it from. So from rocks, so basic essential minerals and vitamins.
My mom craved petrol.
What?
Yeah, with me.
What?
And when she was at a petrol station, she wanted like
The smell of it,
petrol, she wanted to drink it.
So what does that mean? Her body is craving. Does it mean that
So
her
it just
body?
means that you need proper supplements as well as your nutrition. So we do add on prenatal supplements, and it tends to help with that quite a bit.
Interesting. I have never heard of petrol. I think when I was pregnant, I probably craved. I don't think I had any real cravings, but I did enjoy some good donuts and all that stuff. You mentioned something that I want to touch on, which is that diet is also important during the conception stage. How is that so?
So your diet will influence your ability to ovulate and actually be able to get pregnant.
Oh.
So for people who are on very unhealthy diets where you're on very high trans fats and your carbs are very unhealthy, so we're looking at super deep fried foods, extreme sweets and things that are very highly processed, not natural in their natural state, it actually promotes insulin resistance, and we found that will then interfere with ovulation. So it's a mess up of all your hormones.
Oh, wow.
As well as where you're getting fats from. Sometimes if you're taking lots of animal products that are very high in fats, you'd be getting also their hormones into your system. So very high whole milk and things like that can give you cow hormones, so the estrogen, progesterone, which will then interfere with your ability to process your own natural hormones and be able to conceive. So ovulation becomes hindered. And for some women, they're very sensitive in that if throughout your month, your cycle. In 1 month, if you're binge eating, you're not exercising, you're being very unhealthy, your period tends to change, and you find that it comes later than usual, and the cycle is a bit longer. But then when you're fitter and you're being more conscious about what you're putting into your body, you get regular cycles, and ovulation is happening as it's expected to.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, live and learn. That's why we have Dr. Claire here. So let's talk about some of the things that we hear a lot when women are pregnant. One of them being you're eating for two. How true is that?
So that's not true at all.
Not even a little? No.
I remember having this conversation with Tats, and she's like, well, I just want to eat for everyone. And there's
eating all
someone
of it.
inside me, so I'm just going to eat for everyone.
I remember you told me like she just needs like 300 calories extra or something.
Yeah. So it's
What's
nothing.
300 calories for people
Like
who don't know?
Bread and peanut butter or
Yeah,
what?
it's just something very simple, just an extra snack or meal that you can add on to your day. Instead of eating just 3 main meals, you should be having snacks in between, but trying to keep it as healthy, whole food as possible.
Okay.
And that's more than enough. The people who might need more would be twin multiple pregnancies, where we ask them to up their diet by about 40% of what they eat normally. So it's nowhere near eating for 2 or 3 or
So where
etc.
did that come from?
It's
Isn't
just
there
the
any
excuse
truth?
because
Okay,
I'm
so
pregnant, I
it's-
just want to eat more.
Well, okay, so, but still, my question is, isn't that your body craving more food for a reason? Or are we just indulging in a way that we didn't allow ourselves to indulge beforehand?
So pregnancy will increase appetite. It will make you want to eat more. But then you don't have to give in to every, just like in normal life, you don't have to give in to every little craving.
Right.
And there's a lot of hormonal changes, so there's also emotional eating. So you need to be careful with that as well. So it's good to eat, if you're eating regularly and you're spreading out your meals and they're small and they're actually wholesome, you'll find you don't crave as much and you're not going to have to eat as much as you would imagine you would have to.
Actually, you've touched on that now twice. You said how it's important to snack in between. So how would you advise, say, someone in their first trimester to go about their eating plan? And also, Tats, I want to hear how you are actually eating. Maybe actually, let's start with you, Tats, so that you don't feel the pressure of
Change the story.
change the story. Tats, how are you moving along?
The first trimester was just because I was sick all the time, so I
Yeah.
just really had a hard time eating. Even just finding, I think the one thing I used to eat was actually a salad from Art Cafe. So that was the one thing that I would constantly eat that would not make me sick.
Okay.
But apart from that, the first trimester was really bad. I would eat also quite unhealthy food, just whatever I could ingest. Really, like I wouldn't really care what I was eating as long as I was actually getting something in my body because I was so sick all the time.
Oh.
But then now I am making a conscious effort to eat healthy, like I'm gonna say a balanced diet because I do eat like unhealthy chips and fried foods, but I also do eat my salads, my fruits, just things made much healthier than just your fried foods and stuff.
Yeah. And the good thing about you too is that you've always been so adventurous with food, so there's nothing that you're going to say no to. As long as it's like cooked well and seasoned well, you're happy. So at least it helps.
Yeah, I eat everything, and I think also that's why Olive is such a foodie. If like Olive eats absolutely anything and everything, and she's always humming when she's eating, and I think that's just because I eat everything.
Right.
But,
Olive is her 17-month-old daughter, by the way. Very, very beautiful little girl. So now, Dr. Claire, how should one go about their eating or scheduling their foods in a 24-hour period?
So just as Tats has said, the first trimester is challenging and a lot of women are unable to keep any food down. So we used to call it morning sickness. It's now referred to as pregnancy sickness because it doesn't necessarily only happen in the morning and it doesn't necessarily only happen in the first trimester. Some women will actually be nauseated and have vomiting episodes throughout the pregnancy.
That was me.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's not referred to as much as morning sickness anymore. But then we do find that because of that challenge of just being nauseous and not being able to keep anything down, we ask you to just eat what you're able to at the time. It's not about thinking, oh, this is going to be unhealthy. I just need to have some nutrition going in and staying down. So most women will ask you to focus on bland food as opposed to spiced food or food that has excessive taste, because that could trigger, it'll just trigger the vomiting episodes. So bland food, first thing in the morning, maybe just crackers or dry cereal even, or just
sweet
cereal.
potato? Is that
Something as bland, maybe what's the other, arrowroot
Okay.
instead. So
Yeah.
it's not as sweet. It's not
Okay.
something that you're registering. Plain rice, ugali, just something that doesn't have much of a taste to it.
That just feels like a punishment, though.
I know, but then at that time, eating and throwing up every 5
That's true.
seconds
That's
is
worse.
even worse.
That is very true.
So in the first trimester, it's more about finding out what you can keep down, what you're happy to be able to eat, what doesn't, you know, trigger nausea or vomiting. And then later on, now you can start adding on the wholesome foods and trying to balance your diet a bit. 3 main meals would be good: breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then snacks in between. So you can have your snack at 10, at 4, and then after dinner just before you go to bed if you need it, because some people do wake up in the night quite hungry, and so if you need it, then you can have a snack then as well. But it's more, at that point, you're trying to be as wholesome as possible, because if you're having chips, we're just going to be gaining unnecessary fat as opposed to getting good nutrition in for the baby.
Okay. Tatiana, you talked about having morning sickness.
Yeah.
Are there certain things that you did that helped with that?
It was really tough. With Olive, I didn't have it at all, or maybe a little bit, but this time, I know you even told me to eat some fruits. So I was trying to eat fruits and things like that, but it was, it was just happening the whole time. It wasn't really helping.
Nothing helped?
Nothing.
I think I remember hearing something like ginger helps. Is that
I
true?
tried the ginger teas. That didn't help. I know my cousins from America said they had ginger tablets, but now it was towards the end already, so it was just pretty much over.
Yeah, there'll always be recommendations. So bland foods, soups, and things that don't really have a taste could be okay, could actually help not trigger the nausea as much. Ginger can help, so ginger in every version. So there's ginger soda, ginger tea, ginger, just the ginger itself, chewing on ginger or sniffing on it, as well as lemons. People say lemon will help as well. But then again, if you're having severe heartburn, that might not really work too well. So it's about each individual woman and what she feels she's able to tolerate, rather than where we would actually be limiting them.
Now there's all these papers and studies that have come out saying that these are the foods that you should 100% avoid during your pregnancy. But then also you see some women go about eating and it doesn't seem to have any kind of impact. What are your thoughts on that, and what are the foods that you feel should absolutely not be included in a pregnant woman's diet?
So again, with medicine, we tend to be based on research and what the facts that we actually can prove. And so we work based off of evidence. So it'll be difficult for a doctor to say just eat whatever you want as long as it's within a healthy diet, if we know there's some things that could increase risks for you in the pregnancy. So the first thing we worry about is the fact that pregnancy as a state in itself reduces your immunity. And so anytime you have any contact with any bugs of any sort, you're more likely to get an infection rather than someone whose immune system was fully intact. So we're looking at foods that the processing of would increase that risk. So we'd look at things that are raw, so raw eggs, rare or raw meats you need to avoid, unpasteurized milk. So all these tend to have bugs like Listeria, E. coli, toxoplasmosis. So all of these are things that you really should be trying to avoid getting infected with during pregnancy, because they pose a risk to both the mother and the baby. We're also looking at things like soft cheeses and the way they're processed. So hard cheese would be better than the soft versions, just because, again, infection is higher risk there. Other things to avoid, funny enough, liver is amazing for iron, but it has such high levels of vitamin A that can be toxic to the fetus. So we do try to avoid liver and liver products during pregnancy. And for iron, we're looking at lean meats instead, as well as kidney, as opposed to having liver. Yeah, so,
I see.
And of course, there's the typical caffeine, try and avoid your excessive coffees,
alcohol, drugs,
and smoking during pregnancy.
I see. Now, in case you're wondering why everyone here seems a little familiar with themselves and you're like, oh, you guys are even on a nickname basis. The truth is, Dr. Claire delivered Tatiana's baby, and she was my obstetrician, and your dad delivered my baby. So it feels like a reunion almost. Yeah, on the couch. We just need our little kids running around. But we have to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to ask about weight and how much you should add, which is where I think sometimes people can get a little sensitive. But we're going to learn together and be educated. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back, ladies and gents. We've got Dr. Claire Kinuthia and Tatiana Karanja in studio with us today, and we're talking about pregnancy and nutrition and diet and exercise too. And before the break, we were getting into the world of nutrition, what to eat, what not to eat. But now I want to touch on weight, which already, even before pregnancy, it's a topic of like, what, like we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. But now with pregnancy, where do you start? How much weight is too much? Is there a way to measure or to understand what you should be adding?
So we generally, as a rule of thumb, will work based off of your BMI pre-pregnancy, and looking at where we're starting from, because some people are within the normal weight bracket, others will be underweight, others are overweight or obese, and so we would be guiding you based off of where you're starting from. Just as a range, we're looking for women to gain between 9 to about 16 kgs, this is in kilograms, during pregnancy. Depending again on where you're starting from. So if you're bigger, you should be gaining less weight. If you're smaller, you should be gaining quite a bit more weight. Yeah.
Tatiana, did you ever feel the pressure around that? Was that ever an issue?
No, I mean, no, I didn't have any. I don't even think I gained that much weight my first pregnancy, and even this one I didn't gain that much weight either. I just, it was, but it's never been an issue for me, because if I need to gain it, it's for my baby, and I don't feel like I'm doing it unhealthily, like I'm not getting bigger because I'm eating really badly or not exercising. So you have to do what you have to do, you know, and then you'll lose it at the end anyway.
So, I hear you. And speaking of exercise, I've been watching you on Instagram and your Insta stories, and I see you in the gym, even with Olive, like doing workouts with her. Is that something you were always conscious about even before, or did you?
I love the gym, so I've always had like issues with my weight, obviously, but you know, I love going to the gym, and even if whatever state I'm in, it just makes me feel amazing about myself. And then obviously I know after conversations with you, Dr. Claire, how important exercise was during my pregnancy, so I would try and go to the gym or walk or whatever, and I believe that my labor was a bit easier because of how much exercise I got the first time. So I'm just trying to make sure to stay in good shape, because I'm really scared about the second time.
How quick was your contractions for your labor? How quick was
5 hours.
5 hours.
Believe, yeah.
And how quick was the pushing?
I feel like that was 15 minutes. Because that was so much, and it really did not hurt as much as the contractions.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I guess you better get your gym on. if you're pregnant, just start walking, start slow.
Yeah.
But Dr. Claire, what are your thoughts on exercise? Because some people are against it completely.
Yeah. So there are myths again to do with exercise. One of the biggest ones being, if you weren't exercising before, don't start during pregnancy. So that's actually wrong. What we would say, and the way I speak to my patients and tell them is, if you weren't an Olympic champion or a marathon runner or climbing Mount Kenya type person before, let's not do that during pregnancy, okay? let's just not train for the Olympics or whatever during pregnancy, but start somewhere. If you've never done anything before, just walking, simple walking should be enough during the pregnancy, but start somewhere. And it's important to go with the way you feel as much as the way your doctor is advising you to do, because we should listen more to our bodies, because I might feel that you're fit enough to do something, but then when you do it, it doesn't feel right, or it actually hurts, and therefore you just know, no, I need to adjust against and not do that again. So we do advise that you should be exercising, you should be active. And when you have a baby, if it's second or third or whatever pregnancy, and you have other children, play with your babies. That's enough exercise on its own. It doesn't mean that you're just couch potatoing the whole time. The only time we have contraindications is if there's actual health risks. So if you're having a high-risk pregnancy, what we would term as a high-risk pregnancy, we would advise against certain forms of exercise or exercise altogether. Sometimes in pregnancy you're asked to be on bed rest, so you need to just follow the instructions as you're given. But generally speaking, in a healthy, normal pregnancy, exercise is actually very good for you.
I was one of those people who never really worked out before pregnancy, but when I did get pregnant, I'd try and walk quite often, and I think it did help too. I think it did help with my labor and delivery. Tats, how often do you go to the gym? Or how often do you work out?
I feel like I'm working out 24/7, because my daughter, let me tell you something, like, oh God, she is like, anyway, apart from Olive, I feel like maybe 3 times a week, let's say, max, whereas obviously before my pregnancy, I would be able to go in 5-6 times a week, but it's just not possible for me at the moment. You know, it is really tough on my body, but at the same time, because of Olive, I don't need to go in.
Yeah, no, but she's about 1.5 years now,
Yeah.
running all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
You're having to run after her.
Yeah.
That is a workout.
Yeah,
So you're working out 24/7, basically.
Yeah,
You're,
it really is,
yeah, you're a gymnast. You've got it down.
Yeah.
Should Dr. Claire, should your gym moments or working out schedule change as you progress through each trimester?
Yes, it should.
Okay.
The first thing to say is don't limit the idea of exercise to just gym. Some people are more outdoors,
Right.
so walks and riding your bike or just walking your dog or whatever could count as exercise.
Yeah.
Swimming also works, and so in fact it tends to be the safest one during pregnancy.
Safest?
Yes.
I don't know why I thought I heard all these, I guess, some of those myths. Some of us
Lots
took
of myths
seriously.
around it.
Yeah.
So, the good thing with swimming is that it's one of those that's very gentle to your joints. So it takes away it gives you a weightlessness. And so you're able to work out muscle groups that you wouldn't otherwise be able to work out.
Yeah.
It also allows you to work out in positions you wouldn't be able to do on land, because we don't want you on your belly, we don't want you on your back. But when you're swimming, that weightlessness, that buoyancy allows you to exercise a lot more and a lot more vigorously than you would if you weren't swimming at all.
Okay.
So swimming tends to be the gentlest, best way. Second, of course, only to walking, because walking is where we tell you that's the one you don't have to even think about.
Yeah.
Just get out of the house and walk.
Yeah.
During the first trimester, if you've been working out before, you can easily just continue with your normal workouts, paying attention to the symptoms you're having as well, because any pain, any bleeding, you need to be careful and come in for a review. But then we adjust the exercises as you go into second and third trimester. And like I said, we don't want you on your back flat, and we don't want you, of course, on your belly. So anything that you can do standing or kneeling or on the side could work out very well for you. And focusing with preferred, if you're working in the gym, preferably under supervision of a trainer, because they know how to modify the exercises for you during pregnancy, as opposed to you just guessing at it. So it would be a lot safer to do it under instruction.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and Tats, do you find yourself in pain after the gym, or your joints?
No,
and if so, how do you? I guess then, how do you go about that? How do you know when to stop?
I guess I feel just normal pain, workout pain. The
Okay.
normal tension in your muscle that you've worked out and you feel really good. But I
Yeah.
don't feel pain that I'm stressing something I shouldn't be stressing.
Okay.
And even my trainer as well. Yeah, he's really amazing. He knows exactly what to work out and which positions you shouldn't be in. So he's never straining me in a position that I feel like I'm really uncomfortable or my bones are hurting or something like
Okay.
that. Yeah, he really takes care of my back and all of that stuff. So
He's got you covered.
Yeah, he's Wilson from CrossFit, just in case
Shout
anybody
out.
needs the gym. Yeah,
He's
he's
the guy.
amazing. Yeah.
Okay, so I know usually when gym or working out is involved and there's all that tension and there's a need for release, massage is what's often the go-to for a lot of people who take training seriously. Why is it that pregnant women can't take massages? Why, or can't have them?
So
Is that true?
We tend to advise against it unless the person is trained in maternity style massages, just because manipulation of the belly especially makes us all a bit nervous, because we're worried about separation of the placenta, which is catastrophic in pregnancy, and that can be caused by manipulating the belly and the baby, moving the baby in different positions. And we'd see traditional birth attendants do it a lot, but then the thing is there'd be so many losses as opposed to the gains, so we just rather that you didn't. So if the person is trained, they know what to do, what's acceptable, what's not. A good, back and shoulder, legs to help with circulation, that's fine. But anything that's manipulating the central area, we just want to avoid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the key, I guess. Sorry.
That's super scary. Like, how
Yeah.
are you going to ask somebody, can I see your certificate?
Right, so you just rather
You just let
not
it
do
be.
it, yeah.
No, I completely get it, and I see why you'd rather it's better safe than sorry. And why also when you're at the gym, you're not out there trying to bust veins and really strain your body, because you don't have the luxury of getting the massage thereafter. But now, speaking of exercise, how important are Kegel exercises?
Yes, I would like to know that too.
So just to get everyone on the same page as to
Right.
what those are exercises that are focused on the pelvic floor muscles. And most women don't even know where those are. So it's about training yourself to understand where they are so that you're consciously aware of your ability to control them, because most people just think this is a passive region and I don't have any control.
Yeah.
So the best way to learn how to do them is when you're on the loo, having a pee, just stop and start, stop and start.
That is so difficult.
I know, but that's the best way to isolate the muscles. Yeah. And initially it'll feel like it's completely foreign territory, but once you start to train yourself on the process in the loo, then even outside, even when you're walking, when you're sitting, when you're just living your life, you can actually be doing your Kegel exercises.
You could be sitting at home right now or in your office, wherever you're watching this from, and you're doing them at this moment.
Smile on your face. So they're very important because the pelvic floor is your support during pregnancy. It's also the muscles that we need during labor, so they help with the pushing out of the baby. And then they are the primary muscles that you need for recovery, for continence to come back, if in case you're having incontinence or issues with...
Sorry, you're having what?
Incontinence.
Okay.
So an inability to control pee or poo. So if you're not able to, if you're having leakage at any point, strengthening those muscles will actually help. Some women experience the incontinence during pregnancy, some after delivery. So your Kegels will help a lot with that toning of that area. It also helps with sexual pleasure and your ability to continue enjoying being with your partner during pregnancy and also afterwards. Okay. So they're very important exercises.
So, and how often should you do them?
In a day, would say about 10 or 15 reps.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about repetition, everyone isn't a gym buff these days, so they know. They know
gym lingo, we're dropping it here.
So once you've isolated and learned how to exercise the muscles, it's just about tensing, tightening them and releasing, tightening and releasing. And you'll start off for very short periods of time because initially it feels foreign and uncomfortable, but as you get better at it, you can hold them for longer and then release and tense up longer and then release. And a few of those a day is more than enough.
Okay. And this is great.
This is great even outside of pregnancy.
That's what I was going to...
even more important.
That's what I was going to ask and mention too, like if this is something that we should be doing, pregnant or not. And it's for the ladies, right? Men don't do Kegel exercises. It's for the ladies, but it's important. And you don't break a sweat, which is also great for some of us who aren't really good at working out. And so how different is this entire regime, your workout regime and keeping active, if you're having twins or multiples?
So that's a lot different because there is a much more strain with multiple pregnancy on the woman's body, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be exercising at all. So it'll be a lot easier in the beginning of the pregnancy, so get your workouts in, get your walks in, get your swimming in, but then at some point most women with multiples will be asked to rest, will be asked to be on bed rest just because of challenges with preterm labor, and we're just trying to get those multiples to term or as close to term as possible. So you just need to be a bit more careful with your exercises, and for those I would always advise under supervision of your doctor. Let your doctor be the one to sign it off.
Right, because it's already high risk.
Yeah.
Tats, what are some of your favorite workouts or just being active?
So CrossFit, definitely. Playing with Olive, that's another favorite. But yeah, I love swimming as well, so that's great. And I also love playing squash, but it just gets a bit more difficult the heavier you get. So, and then also because it takes a toll on your knees. So it's just, it's a lot easier like first trimester maybe into second, and then...
Yeah. So are you're finding it more difficult, the...
Squash, definitely, because it's just like, I'm just getting so heavy, you know? And it's really fast paced, like running back and forth.
Yeah.
I just don't even have the strength. Like my heart does not have the strength to cope with.
Did you work out throughout your first pregnancy?
Yeah. So but it wasn't like gym. It was more walking and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Easier the further along you went.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So we have to take another quick break, but when we come back, we'll dive into the myths around pregnancy. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back just now. Welcome back. We're talking about pregnancy, and in studio we have Tatiana Karanja, who's 5.5 months pregnant. She's 23 weeks pregnant. And we've got Dr. Kea Kinuthia, who's an obstetrician and gynecologist and a consultant, and also the lady who helped deliver both our children. So really, we trust what she has to say. And I'm going to start off with a quick fact, and that is, did you know that the uterus enlarges up to 500 times its normal size when pregnant? Man, the things that the body does.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to imagine what that size is.
But even maybe actually the uterus was like, okay, I don't think it was microscopic, but
before you're pregnant, it's about the size of your fist.
Yeah.
And then by the time you're full term, we're talking your entire belly. So think about it like that.
That is crazy. I mean, sometimes did you ever have those moments, Tats, when you thought, how is my stomach here and now it's here? How is your body able to stretch that far? And then you see a foot punching out and a little hand and an elbow. It's magnificent.
Always weirds me out is like how when you see pictures of how your intestines and your stomach and everything is just like pushed up. That is crazy.
And how you can't breathe because your lungs are now like, you know, this big and you're now always out of breath. It's crazy. It's a beautiful thing what our body goes through, and I think that's why we ought to honor this process and really be in love with every moment. But now I want us to talk about now after pregnancy and some of the things that we hear should or shouldn't happen. For starters, let's go back to the working out conversation. How quickly after giving birth should one consider going back to the gym, if that's in their interest?
So again, it's a very individual basis, and also we have to factor in the mode of delivery, whether you had a normal delivery or a cesarean section.
Okay.
And also, even with a normal delivery, did you have a tear or did we have to give you an episiotomy? So we have to factor all this in. And if everything went well and you completely had a normal delivery with no issues whatsoever, then as soon as you feel able to go back to working out. And that's just simply starting with walking again, and listen to your body and don't push beyond what you're comfortable with. And then for C-sections, we tend to ask them to wait until about 6 weeks, maybe even more, just because we're allowing the wound to heal, and the same with an episiotomy or a tear. Just because if you don't allow your body to heal in that prime time, you're going to suffer complications later on and throughout the rest of your life. Just as most commonly with a lot of pain and scar tissue. So you just need to allow yourself to heal properly first. There's no competition with anyone else, so just calm down, let everything heal, and then get back to working out.
But that often, sorry?
This day and age, you know how in social media all the mums are like,
snap back,
with their six-pack, so you're like trying to keep up with everybody else.
That's what I was going to ask you, Tats. Did you ever feel the pressure to come back as like snatched, as they say, in like a, you know?
I didn't think that the first time. I mean, I wasn't snatched beforehand, so like I wasn't going to go back.
You're being hard on yourself. Tats.
I just don't mean like I wasn't like there was no six-pack to go back to.
Okay.
But I mean, I was so involved with Olive, that stuff didn't really. I didn't really think about all of that. But then I do remember that I did start working out quite soon after my pregnancy. Like nothing was wrong with my pregnancy, I think. So I did work out quite soon, but then it was also just for me to kind of just get my life back. I mean, I enjoyed going to the gym. I enjoyed all of that stuff. So it wasn't really to get back into shape because I was so involved with all of that, it didn't really matter.
I remember a picture that you posted and you were quite vulnerable in it, and you were just like, look, this is my body and this is what it looks like. And I just thought, you look amazing.
Thank
you couldn't tell. And you had, I think, were you carrying Olive in the photo? It was such a beautiful, beautiful moment. And I think a lot of women just thought, oh, thank God that she's out here just showing that she's not six-pack, but you also looked beautiful. One couldn't tell that you'd just given birth.
I actually thought so too, to be honest with you. Like after, I was just like, wow, like look at my body after that, man. I was so proud of myself.
High five in there, come on. Good job, Tats. And what about diet? How different should your diet change when you're pregnant versus right after giving birth?
So not too much change, maybe just less calories than before. But again, it's more focused on the need for breastfeeding because that's even a higher demand than actual pregnancy for a lot of women. So producing milk for the baby and all the nutrition that goes into the milk comes from you and what you're eating. So this is not the time to go back to, I can just live my life and be freestyle. You need to be as careful as possible as you were being careful during the pregnancy. And lots of snacking in between because some women can actually get very hypoglycemic during that time.
Hypoglycemic meaning?
Low blood sugar, so your sugars would just drop right from normal to just really low and cause you to collapse or faint, and that can be very, very dangerous, especially if you're handling a baby. So you need to just always constantly be nibbling on something healthy so that you don't have episodes where your blood sugar drops too low.
Okay, well, Tats, your pregnant now,
Yeah.
and you're also still breastfeeding
Yes.
Olive, aren't
Yes.
you? Now, have you heard those myths or
That I
rumors that
shouldn't
you
be
shouldn't
doing?
be breastfeeding? And I guess, Dr. Claire, maybe you could debunk or let us know, is that true? Is there any dangers with breastfeeding when
So-
you're pregnant?
I actually asked her about it.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, okay, now I'm safe,
Yeah. So it's like you said, a myth that you shouldn't. With higher risk pregnancies, we might advise you not to, just because milk letdown, the same hormone that is responsible for you to be able to breastfeed, is the same hormone that controls contractions of the uterus. So for a normal healthy pregnancy, that wouldn't cause any discomfort or any issues to the pregnancy. But if you've had preterm labor before, or you've had a premature rupture of membranes where your fluid comes out before its time, we need to be a bit careful, because those contractions could trigger the same, or if you've had multiple miscarriages in the past. So generally speaking, it's safe, it's healthy, it helps you continue to bond with the child that you have, and also be able, as long as your nutrition is awesome, because your nutrition, the demand on your body at this point is double, extra. So you're breastfeeding and you're growing a baby, so you just need to be a bit careful. Also, as you hit second trimester, the milk letdown will reduce, so you need to start to think about weaning the baby and having the baby ready for when the milk actually stops coming.
Wait, excuse me. the milk stops?
Yes, because of, again, pregnancy hormones. So it's not that it's going to continue throughout the pregnancy, and definitely not at the same amount or volume that you were producing before.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that.
Yeah, so you just need to be prepared, and don't just latch on and just keep on with the
Okay.
baby. Just start to prepare for weaning, or start weaning the baby in advance.
Interesting, because I'd have assumed that the milk would just continue in preparation for the new baby.
So what it'll do is it'll stop being let down, so it stops being let out of your body, but production is continuing in anticipation for the new baby.
Oh, that's your
how-
body looking out
Yes.
for the new little one.
Yes.
Oh,
So
plus our bodies are just beautiful creations.
So you just
aren't
need
they?
to be careful with that. The other thing is, it's also a bonding thing. We're very emotional about breastfeeding our babies just because of the bonding. So as you're preparing to stop the breastfeeding, find other ways to bond with your child. Don't let them be too attached to the breastfeeding. Trigger them in other ways. Help them to play and actually socialize with you in other ways, so that when you do finally just have to stop, they're ready for that process. Yeah.
Tats, have you considered weaning, or what are
So,
some of the things you're doing to prepare?
Luckily, I don't know what it is, but with Olive throughout her whole life, things just happen so naturally and just on the right time. So even for now, she's just started drinking a lot less. I mean, I know she's eating a lot more, but it just seems like she knows.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, it's time for me to kind of let baby do her own other thing, and I'm gonna be on my food now.
Right.
So yeah,
So you don't have to go through that emotional like stress of, oh, what am I doing?
Yeah,
Is it
no,
right?
I don't
Okay,
have to
that's
let her.
good.
Yeah, it's been really easy, and yeah, we've just substituted some milk now, so
Yeah.
she's on a bottle as well. So she's fine.
Okay,
yeah.
good. Aw,
Yeah.
she's getting ready for her baby sister or brother.
Yeah,
isn't
exactly,
she?
yeah.
Now you talked about, now is not the time for once giving birth for you to go back to your days of, oh, it's all done now. Whew, where's my glass of wine? But I'm also speaking to the ladies who are watching who've just given birth, and they're like, listen, I spent 40 weeks doing everything for this baby. I'm gonna need that glass of wine stat, okay? Chop chop.
So that was definitely me. I was like, this
I also had moments of like, but the baby is out. What do you mean I can't just like dive into whatever I want to dive into? So how do you go about that? Because I think also for a lot of women, it could be a moment of just maybe even resentment starting to build, whether it's to their children or to their partners, and you're just like, wait, why am I the one who's always doing everything that I need to do for this baby, and I just want a glass of wine? So is that even a possibility?
So medically, we say no. We
Okay.
shouldn't be drinking during pregnancy or during breastfeeding,
Okay.
especially not during the first 3 months after having your baby, because the baby's liver is so immature, it's not even going to be able to deal with alcohol the way it is. And the thing with drinking alcohol is the same amount of alcohol in your bloodstream is exact same amount that will be in your breast milk. So there's no factoring, oh, some will pass through, some doesn't. It's just the same level. So if drinking would actually be very detrimental to that newborn, and you need to be very careful with alcohol during that time. Then the other myth we have is women will say, well, I'll pump and dump after I've had my drink.
Right. I was
Right.
going to ask about
Yeah,
that.
so they say, okay, you know what, I'm going to have a drink, and then I'm going to pump and discard that milk, and then wait whatever X number of times I've pumped, and then the baby's fine. Again, it's not about amount or the specific how much you can get rid of in order to breastfeed. It's a time thing. So it's about how your body metabolizes alcohol naturally. For different women, different ways, and I mean different timing. But on average, after a glass of whatever you're having, it takes about 2 to 3 hours to clear it from your bloodstream, from your breast milk. So it's not about expressing and getting rid of the milk and then feeding that baby in an hour's time. There'll still be alcohol in the milk. So you just need to be careful with what you're drinking, how much you're drinking as well. So a glass of wine, just because also we're human beings and we understand our patients are human beings, and we don't want to like say XXX and then you just go sin in the cupboard. I need to give you a bit of direction. So if you're going to have maybe a glass of wine, for example, so you just need to keep it at the minimal, 1 glass, and that's it. So you're not thinking about, I want to feel, I want to feel the alcohol. Yeah. Because that will take longer to process. It will take longer to get it out of your milk. So after a glass of wine, about 2 to 3 hours is what the time will take for breast milk to clear alcohol completely. And so that's the duration you need to be keeping in mind. If you're having more, it'll take a lot longer.
Right.
Also, plan for it. Get the baby, get the baby breastfed beforehand, express and store beforehand. Yeah, so that you can even give yourself a bit more time than just 3 hours, just to be on the safe side. The other thing we're against alcohol about is because it does take away your ability to take good care of your baby. So we are being careful with that. So you need to be responsible, because if you are the primary caregiver, you don't have help, you don't have someone else with you, it could be dangerous. You're not able to respond to the baby as quickly or as efficiently. And especially so if you're co-sleeping with a baby, we definitely don't advise that with alcohol consumption, because you will crush the baby and not be in the state of mind to realize that that's what's happening. So either you or your partner, if you have somebody who's been drinking, the baby shouldn't be in bed with you guys.
I hear you. So point number 1 to take from that is that really just take some time and just keep focusing on the baby. But if you do feel the need to, then there are these steps that should be taken into consideration. And pump and dump does not necessarily work, at least not in the way that you think. It's fine, it's out of the system. Tats, were there foods that you felt helped with your milk production? And did you even have any issues with milk production?
Yeah, actually it happened after a night out, and I was responsible. She was on formula, I'll have you know, and my mom was taking care of her, my mom and my mother-in-law. But yeah, it happened after a night out where I just realized that firstly they just got so engorged, and that was super painful, and then after that I was having problems. At least I thought I was. I felt like I wasn't having this right amount of milk, or the same that I was having before. So I did do things like, is it turmeric or what is that? Some supplement that I was taking. And I also did go to the pharmacy to take another thing they had, and it just came back to normal. So I did have like a few episodes, maybe 2 or 3 times, where I felt like my milk supply was ending. But then also it does tend to get, I mean, at the beginning it's so much, and then you get used to your baby, and then it slows down a bit, right? So
but you've brought up a very good point. That's another thing we have with alcohol is there's that myth, and it's a very strong myth in some parts of the world, where a beer will help with your milk production. And the thing is, it's the exact opposite with alcohol. It actually stops letdown, so your breasts become engorged. So you feel like you have more milk, but it's not coming out, and it can actually give you breast engorgement and very, very painful sore breasts with that. So you need to be very careful with alcohol because of that, because it will reduce the amount coming out, as well as, I mean, and production still continues as it does, because, I mean, that's what your body is supposed to be doing at the time, but you're not able to get it out as efficiently, and so you will end up with breast engorgement, which can then lead to mastitis, other infections with the breast, and breast abscesses and things like that. So you just do have to be careful with alcohol.
So the last question that I'd like to get into was has to do with some of the, I don't know if it's myths, but I know usually when we'd go and visit someone in the hospital, my mom would be like, okay, we have to bring the porridge from Meru, and we had to, like, there were all these things. And I know also when I gave birth, that's the one thing that was stocked. The freezer was full. There was nothing else. There was no space for anything other than porridge from Meru. So are there foods or drinks that help with breast milk production?
So again, our bodies do what our bodies do. So during pregnancy, during time for breastfeeding, your body will do what it needs to do, regardless of your diet. And that's why, just as an example, women who are in famine areas, who are people who are starving, are still able to feed, despite the low rations they're able to get. So you don't need to binge on the teas and the excessive
Porridge.
milks.
And that porridge really does a number on your stomach. Let me tell you, Mom, you were not looking out for me, but you were looking out for Nyla, so it's okay.
Yeah. So it's not a bad thing because it's what our community does, and people, I mean, it takes a village. Our village still is very, very efficient here. In other parts of the world, everybody just disappears and you're on your own. Here, everybody rallies, and it's a great thing to
beautiful.
have. But then you as a mom, you need to be able to just moderate and be careful with how much you're having, because again, that's a lot of calories, that's a lot of sugar coming into your system. And like we said, insulin resistance can interfere with so many different processes. So you just need to be a bit careful with the quantity. You can have some, that's good, but it doesn't have to be every single meal, and that's all I'm having all day.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Oh, thank you, ladies. Our time has come to an end, but I think we've done a great job of demystifying the world of exercise and diet and weight and porridge, or all the other things, or beer and alcohol too. And I hope that if you're watching this and you're pregnant, or maybe even you're trying to have a child, that you've learned one or two things from Dr. Claire and from Tatiana's experience. We'll be back tomorrow as usual, 8 a.m. sharp. If you want to chime in and let us know your thoughts on this topic, make sure you're following us on social media. That's Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And you know what it is by now. I'm sure you know what it is. It's living with us, obviously. See you tomorrow, 8 a.m. Bye.